So, hello everyone. Today, in the subject of medical microbiology, we are going to discuss about the topic named AIDS. So, when you are dealing with this topic, you will be able to know quite literally what is the meaning of AIDS, that is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, and you will be able to understand how the current scenario is working on that very early problem that arise because of all the clinical features that it was showing in 80s and 90s. So it was a global issue. It was a big problem, very similar to the problem of COVID the world is facing today. So what were the preventive measures and what were the clinical features of HIV/AIDS? It still poses a very huge threat, and the individuals who are suffering from AIDS, they still don't have an effective cure, though it can be prevented very easily. So HIV is a virus that targets and alters the immune system, right, and increases uh, the risk at and impact of other infection and disease. Without treatment, the infection might progress to an advanced stage called AIDS. So, HIV virus, it is simply known to be very much functional and very much effective in causing AIDS. Okay, the full form of HIV is human immunodeficiency virus, and the disease is it cause is known as AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Okay, so the problem is that the main aim of AIDS uh, or HIV is to make your immune system out of the job. Okay, so when you make your immune system weak, right? So what will happen? The things that will take place is that their aim is to make your immune system weak so that it is unable to fight the infections, unable to fight the viral or bacterial infections, and because of that, an individual might die because of common cold only. So these things are very dangerous. Okay, human immunodeficiency virus uh, infection and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome (HIV/AIDS) is a spectrum of conditions caused by infection with human immunodeficiency virus or retrovirus. So you must understand that HIV virus causes AIDS. Okay, that is why they are known as HIV/AIDS. Following initial infection, a person may not notice any symptoms or may experience a brief period of influenza illness. Okay, the symptoms that person will show they literally will look like influenza illness. Okay, might be having common flu or something like that. But in turn, it turns out to be a very dangerous thing. That is not at all good for the individual. Typically, this is followed by a prolonged period with no symptoms. If the infection progresses, it interferes more with the immune system, increasing the risk of developing common infections such as tuberculosis, as well as other opportunistic infections and tumors, which are otherwise rare in people who have normal immune function. So, what these things are doing? These things are normally not at all compromising the situation. Okay, so it hinders the in the function of the immune system. It makes the immune system so weak that it is not at all able to defend itself against common infections. These late symptoms of infection are referred to as acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or AIDS. This stage is often associated with uh, unintended weight loss. So the individual loses weight at a very significant pace, and when you diagnose the situation, you are unable to detect any of the legal reason with the logic that why this individual is losing weight. So here in this image, we have explained that what is the difference between AIDS and HIV. AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, right? AIDS is a medical condition in which immune system is too weak to fight against the infection, right? So, and what is HIV? HIV is human immunodeficiency virus. HIV is a virus which attacks immune system in humans. So, AIDS is caused by HIV, and HIV causes a condition that is known as AIDS. You must understand these two things separately. And 1st December is celebrated as World AIDS Day. So, due to advances, people with HIV and access to quality health care are rarely develop AIDS. Okay, so they are not at all really developing AIDS these days. Once they have started taking HIV treatment, so treatment is now available, and once you have started taking the treatment, so the condition of AIDS is not at all uh, botherable for the individual. As experts such as WHO trusted sources observe, HIV has become a manageable condition, and many people with HIV have long, healthy lives. So, this is a very normal condition, and people have started learning to manage it properly. Earlier, it was not at all manageable, and many people used to die because of AIDS. But still, the treatment is not at all available, but the disease is manageable now. The life expectancy of a person with HIV is now approaching that of someone who tests negative for the virus, provided that the person takes medication called antiretroviral therapy on an ongoing basis. Okay, if you are on antiretroviral therapy, they are just a combination of antibiotics that they give on a regular basis. Uh, Therapy. As of 2019, around 68% of adult trusted sources and 53% of children with HIV worldwide are receiving lifelong treatment. So they always have to receive treatment on the basis of retroviral drugs. So here we explore the HIV and AIDS, including their symptoms, causes, and treatments. So HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus, and it attacks immune cells called CD4. Okay, these are types of T cells, a type of WBC that circulate, detecting infections throughout the body and faults and anomalies in other cells. So, what is their function? Their function is to eradicate any kind of anomaly that is seen in the immune in the body, and it this cell immediately terminates or eradicates it. So, HIV targets and infiltrates CD4 cells, using them to create more copies of virus. So, CD4 cells is targeted by HIV, and it starts to multiply within those cells, using them to create more copies of virus. In doing so, it destroys the cell and reduces the body's ability to combat other infections and disease. So it targets CD4 cells in the process. Meanwhile, it is targeting CD4 cells and multiplying its copies, it is weakening your immune system in this very process. So here you can see the real image of HIV and inside here in the human body. This increases the risk and impact of opportunistic infection and some types of cancer. So what will happen? Your body is constantly working on that. Okay, in the normal scenario, your body is constantly fighting against these kind of infections, right? So when your body is fighting against these type of infections, like uh, opportunistic infections, your immune system is constantly defending you, but it acts as a shield. But when the shield is weakened and your body is no longer able to protect yourself, so what will happen? All the opportunistic infections they take advantage, and they just uh, might infect you with a very common infection, and that will prove to be lethal for you. It is worth noting, however, that some people have HIV for long periods without experiencing any symptoms. HIV is a lifelong condition, but treatments and certain strategies it can prevent the virus from transmitting and infection from progressing. AIDS. So, what is AIDS? AIDS stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. It is a stage of HIV infection. Doctors identify AIDS as having CD4 count fewer than 200 cells per cubic millimeter. So, if you are having condition of AIDS, what will happen significantly? Most significantly, the things that will happen is that your CD4 cell count drops. Okay, you don't have a very good amount of CD4 cells present in your body. Okay, so all they may diagnose AIDS if a person has characteristics of opportunistic infections, associated types of cancer, or both. So the person can develop some sort of opportunistic infections also. They can have many different type of cancers also. So meanwhile, what they are trying to explain to you is that it weakens your immune system so much that it is just open and prone to any type of disease or any type of infection that it can get. When a person with HIV does not receive treatment, AIDS likely to develop as the immune system gradually wears down. However, advances in antiretroviral treatment have made progress to AIDS increasingly less common. Okay, but the medicines that have been in the category of retroviral drugs are still very costly. In 2018, there were more than 1.1 million people with HIV in United States and 6,000 deaths related to AIDS. So, what is the cause of HIV? HIV can transmit when body fluids containing virus come in contact with a permeable barrier in the body or small breaks in moist tissues of areas such as genitals. So, if you are coming in contact with the body fluids of a person who's already having the condition of AIDS, then you are much more prone to having such sort of infection, and especially if there are small breaks in the moist tissue areas such as genitals. Specifically, HIV can transmit via blood, semen, pre-semen fluid, vaginal fluids, rectal fluids, and breast milk. So here in this image, you can see how uh, the viral RNA is produced, and what happens is that first of all, you can see the virus HIV binds to the cell. Okay, binding fusion inhibitors. Then in second stage, it injects or releases its internal matter into the cell. Reverse transcriptase inhibitor. Okay, and those integrate internal matter or its viral genome. Integration takes place within the cell's DNA, and transcription occurs, which leads to the formation of viral RNA. And uh, the fifth point is translation. So, following the molecular machinery of the cell, the viral RNA, it produces the viral protein and the assembly and parts that are required to make a virus. After that assembly, all the virus particles they combine together and they leave the cell. So, in seventh stage, you can see the protease cleavage, and eighth stage is maturation. So, this is how a virus separates itself from the host cell, and this is the main event how this virus multiply within your CD4 cells. So the virus cannot transmit through saliva, so the person cannot contract HIV through open mouth kissing or follicle. One of the main cause of HIV transmission in the US is anal and vaginal intercourse. So for transmission to happen, the people must not be using barrier protection, such as a condom or taking pre-exposure prophylaxis, uh, a treatment that aims to prevent HIV transmission among the people with known risk. So here we can see the structure of HIV virus. You can see that it's round structure. It is having uh, glycoproteins that they look like spikes outside, that help in the attachment to the host cell, and HIV envelope is there. Okay, so here we can see the key terms. The HIV capsid. Okay, the HIV code that contains HIV RNA. Okay, or viral genome, and HIV envelope contains the outer surface of HIV, which gives the protection to the HIV genome. And HIV enzymes protein carry out steps in the HIV cycle, like protease enzyme and all those enzymes that are readily functioning in order to invade the host cell. The glycoproteins, protein spikes embedded in HIV envelope, which helps in the binding to the host cell. HIV RNA is the main genetic material. So, another main cause of HIV transmission in the country is sharing equipment and injection for drugs. So, we must not share the injection needles, okay, for anything. So, the drug addicts they just use one syringe for taking drugs, and every individual is like that. Less commonly, HIV transmits to babies during pregnancy, childbirth, or breastfeeding. Also, there is a chance of transmission in blood transfusions, so the risk is extremely low when blood donations are effectively screened. So, HIV is a virus that attacks the cells that help fight body infections. Okay, so there is no cure, but it is treatable with medicine. Okay, so you have to prevent the condition that can cause HIV. Very good. So it is very recently known, and more researches are going on in order to find a cure for this disease. Undetectable, untransmittable. HIV can only transmit through fluids that contain a certain amount of the virus. If a person has undetectable levels of HIV, a virus cannot transmit to another person. Some people use a shorthand to refer to the fact that undetectable levels of HIV are untransmittable. U equals to U. Doctors considered HIV to be undetectable when the amount of virus in the body is so low that blood tests cannot identify it. Having undetectable levels require a person to continually receive effective treatment and follow the recommendation plan carefully. Usually involves taking medication every day. A person with undetectable levels still has HIV, and regular monitoring with blood test is key to maintain this status. So what doctors are doing there? Doctors have the confirmation that person is having HIV, and they always try to maintain the significant conditions that are eventually required in order to make the conditions viable for the person. Progression of AIDS. Okay, the chances of a HIV progressing to AIDS vary widely from person to person. Okay, depending on many factors, including person's age, body's ability to defend against HIV, accessibility of quality healthcare. Okay, presence of other infection, person's genetic resistance to certain strains of HIV. Strains of HIV and some are drug resistance. So here you can see the complete cycle of HIV cells and how does it replicate inside the CD4 cells and multiply themselves, gaining the uh, immunity against the immune system. So what are the symptoms? For most part, other infections with bacteria, other viruses, fungi, or parasites causes the more pronounced symptoms of HIV. What are the early symptoms? Some people with HIV have no symptoms for months or even years after contracting HIV, after contracting the virus, partially because 1 in 7 people with HIV in the US do not know that they have it. While a person with no symptoms may be unlikely to seek care, there is still a high risk of transmission. For this reason, experts recommend regular testing so that everyone is aware of their HIV status. Meanwhile, around 80% of people with HIV develop flu-like symptoms around 2 to 6 weeks after contracting the infection. These symptoms are collectively called acute retroviral syndrome. Right, so they have flu-like symptoms within 2 to 6 weeks. Early symptoms of HIV may include a fever, chills, sweating, particularly at night, and large glands or swollen lymph nodes, a diffuse rash, fatigue, weakness. These symptoms results from the immune system fighting off different types of infection. Anyone who has several of these symptoms and may have contracted HIV in past 2 to 6 weeks should take a test. Asymptomatic HIV. Here an image of transmission emission microscopy, electron microscopy. TEM. You can see the HIV virus. After the symptoms of acute retroviral syndrome resolve, many people go on to experience no HIV symptoms for years. While they feel well and appear healthy, the virus continues to develop and damage the immune system and organs. If the person does not take medication that prevents the replication of virus, this slow process that continue for around 8 to 10 years. However, taking antiretroviral can stop this process and suppress the virus completely. Late stage in HIV infection, if a person with HIV does not receive effective treatment, the virus weakens the body and especially its ability to fight infection, exposing it to serious illness. When CD4 cells are severely depleted and fewer than 200 cells per cubic millimeter, a doctor can diagnose AIDS, which sometimes is called stage 3 HIV. Because earlier stages of HIV mostly are undetectable and also the individual does not experience something. But when the number of CD4 cells they gradually depletes in the person's body, then the things are realized. Okay, train left the station. The presence of certain opportunistic infection involving bacteria, viruses, fungi, or mycobacteria also help a doctor to identify AIDS. Because if the person is having HIV and he or she is already in a very late stage, then they certainly would have many other opportunistic infections infested in their body. So symptoms of AIDS can include blurred vision, a dry cough, night sweats, white spot on the tongue and mouth, shortness of breath, swollen glands lasting for weeks, diarrhea which is usually persistent or chronic, a fever over 100 degree or 37 degrees centigrade that lasts for weeks, continuous fatigue, unintentional weight loss. So these are some of the main symptoms that include HIV. A person with AIDS has significantly increased risk of developing a threatening life illness. Without treatment, people with AIDS typically live for around 3 years, right? However, taking other medications alongside HIV treatment, a person with AIDS can control, prevent, and treat serious complications. When a person with HIV takes effective treatment, the infection may never progress to stage 3. Treatment can also help a person to recover some lost immune functions, which will help ward off severe infections. So every time you must be aware of the condition of your body. Okay, you are feeling something funny. You are feeling that something is not normal in your body. Okay, you are feeling fatigue. You are feeling restlessness, or you are having chills or fever, and you are not at all feeling healthy. So, what are the steps that you should be taking for preventing the complications? Prevention is the key, extending the life of a person with late stage of HIV. You can prevent it, you cannot terminate it or fully cure it. Okay, so what are the things that are essential in the prevention of HIV? Where we are going to see that. Prevention is the key to extending the life of the person. It is important to manage the viral load of HIV medications and take additional precautions, such as using condoms to prevent other STDs or STIs, having vaccinations for potential opportunistic infections, right? Identifying any environmental factors such as a pet cat that could lead to infection, limiting exposure to these factors, such as wearing gloves while changing cat litter, avoiding foods with high risk of contamination, such as uncooked eggs and meat, unpasteurized dairy and fruit juices, and raw seed sprouts, not drinking water straight from a lake or river or unfiltered tap water in certain countries, asking a doctor about relevant vaccinations and ways to limit exposures to pathogens at work, at home, and on vacation. So most of the time, you always have to work in accordance to the process where you can avoid the infections. Now, moving on to the quiz that is related from HIV/AIDS. As you have seen that you have went through the significant amount of knowledge that is initially required, and you now know every bit of detail and the significant amount of knowledge that is required for the treatment of AIDS or HIV. So, first of all, you must be realizing that uh, HIV causes AIDS. The full form of HIV is human immunodeficiency virus, and AIDS. The full form of AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So, HIV causes AIDS. AIDS is the condition that is caused by HIV, and you should always keep these things in your mind, right? Whenever you are studying this topic. So, which of the following is a symptom of AIDS? Fever, swollen lymph nodes, tiredness, all the above. Correct answer is D, all the above. Okay. The first ever instance of AIDS was reported in USA, France, Russia. None of the above. The correct answer is A, USA. Third, HIV parasitizes Y helper cells, T helper cells, K helper cells, or none of them. The correct answer is B, T helper cells. Fourth, HIV can also spread through sharing water, breathing in infected droplets, sharing needles, kissing. The correct answer is C, sharing needles. Especially in the individuals who are drug addicts, or if you are going to the barber shop, you should be extremely careful. You should not share your scissors, razors, or any other such intimate objects with other people, right? You should have all these things separated from others. How many stages of HIV infection exist? 3, 2, 1. The correct answer is 3 stages. Okay. Uh, HIV is thought to have originated from birds, mosquitoes, chimpanzees. The correct answer is C, chimpanzees. Okay, because if you see the evolution of chimpanzees in the state, they developed AIDS condition of HIV, and they started dying. But significantly, they made a breakthrough, and they learned to live significantly and in a very healthy way along with HIV virus. So you can say that this HIV virus got transferred from chimpanzees to humans. 7. SIV is the abbreviation for Siberian immunodeficiency virus. Okay, so you must understand the short form in a very significant way. In individuals with HIV, opportunistic infections are more frequent, less frequent, non-existence, or none of the above. The correct answer is A. They are more frequent because the immune system is not at all able to defend itself continuously against the attacks of uh, bacteria, virus, fungi, and other mycoplasma. Because your immune system is always acting like a continuous shield. But meanwhile, in this whole process, you are unable to fend off those attacks, and they do infect the individuals in a very severe manner, and they do develop very severe infections. So it is the main reason that how doctors they continuously uh, realize that the individual is suffering from the condition of HIV that causes AIDS. So HIV is a lentivirus in nature. Okay, it is also known as retrovirus. Siberian immunodeficiency virus is known to affect non-human primates, Birds, rabbits, none of the above. It affects non-human primates. So these are the references, and now we finish our lecture. Thank you for listening to me patiently. It was really good. Thank you.